The sky over Earth was heavy with dust and sorrow as the last council ship slipped beyond the blue horizon. In every city, people paused in their work to watch the great vessel disappear. Mothers held their children close, and elders bowed their heads. After 1,000 years of peace, no one had imagined a day like this. The council's judgment had been swift and harsh. Earth was cut off from all alliances, all trade, and all protection. Yet as the engines faded into the dark, a quiet resolve kindled in the hearts of those left behind. Exiled or not, they would not bend to shame. In the halls of the capital, Ambassador Celine pressed her hands together until her knuckles whitened. She had stood before the Grand Assembly, tears welling as she pled Earth's innocence. Only sought knowledge to heal and grow. She spoke of crops that fed starving worlds and medicines that cured new diseases. But her words fell on ears hardened by fear. The Council had accused Earth of hiding forbidden technology machines that could bend gravity itself. Felt the weight of defeat? Celine refused to let despair claim her mind. On the streets below, Mira rose from her workbench, stained with oil and metal filings. As a lead engineer in the orbital works, she had helped build engines that carried peaceful traders across the galaxy. Now those same factories sat idle, their doors locked by council decree. Mira ran her fingers along the cool metal of a discarded prototype, remembering the first test flight when laughter had filled the control room. She closed her eyes and vowed to find a way forward. The galaxy would not accept Earth, would forge its own path among the stars. Word of the exile spread swiftly through the towering news spires. In classrooms, teachers paused lessons to explain that history had taken a sudden turn. In parks, friends gathered in small circles under the shade of netted trees, speaking in hushed tones of past glories and future hopes. Farmers in the hinterlands saw their shipments of grain to distant planets halted overnight. Miners in the mountains watched their raw ores pile up in silent heaps. Every corner of the world felt the sting of rejection, but each community also heard the same simple truth. If they stood together, they could turn this trial into a chance to grow stronger. Within days, electric posters lit with the slogan, "Exile is our call to rise," sprang up in every major city. People volunteered to help where they could best serve. Former diplomats offered to negotiate with fringe colonies. Tired pilots dusted off flight suits and signed up for new training programs. School children sketched designs for spaceships that could outlast any council vessel. Across the planet, the spirit of invention sparked flames of hope. In one crowded workshop, Mira assembled a small team of engineers and scientists to discuss how they might repurpose old council engines for Earth's own fleet. Their faces were tired, but their eyes shone with determination. That evening, under the glow of thousands of city lights, President Dane spoke to the world. His voice was calm, but carried the weight of purpose. He reminded everyone that exile did not mean surrender. He urged citizens to believe in themselves and in each other. He spoke of the long nights of rebuilding after past catastrophized climate storms, resource shortages, economic collapses, how humanity had always found a way through shared effort. As his words echoed across loudspeakers in every town square, crowds cheered and wept. In that moment, fear turned to solidarity. On the edge of the sea, a young girl named Lena watched the waves roll in. She clutched a small stone, a gift from her grandmother, who had lived through wars on other worlds. Lena had learned that strength could be measured not by weapons, but by courage and kindness. As she tossed the stone into the surf, she whispered, a promise she would grow up to help Earth rise. Across the restless planet, millions made similar vows. In the loss of a place at the Council's table, they found a new purpose. Exiled but unbroken, Earth's people prepared to light the first spark of an empire built on hope, unity, and the unshakable belief that together they could touch the stars. In the weeks after exile, Earth cities buzzed with a new purpose. Factories that once lay dormant roared back to life. Citizens of every age and background hurried through crowded streets, carrying blueprints, tools, and ideas. Bright posters declaring "Build Our Future" fluttered from lampposts. Wherever people gathered, conversations turned to invention. Grief for lost alliances gave way to excitement for new possibilities. In homes, workshops sprang up. In parks, makeshift labs appeared under tents. Across the planet, a single idea took root. To rise again, Earth must sow the seeds of innovation. High above the clouds, the orbital workstation became the heart of this awakening. Under Mira's steady guidance, engineers unlocked locked bays and dusted off long unused machinery. They found relics from Council ships' sentience, power cores, navigation arrays, and studied them with fresh eyes. Each morning, they arrived. Before dawn, eager to learn how to adapt these wonders for Earth's own use. When a gravity drive hum broke the silence, the team cheered. It was not a final victory, but a promise that exile could not silence human ingenuity. On the ground, farmers led their own revolution. They built large hydrogenated domes on empty fields, turning arid plains into green oceans of lettuce, tomatoes, and grains. Hydroponic towers spiraled toward the sky, glowing under LED lights. Families volunteered to water seedlings and harvest fresh produce. Children plucked ripe fruits, their laughter echoing in the controlled air. As crops flourished, no one forgot the days when hunger threatened distant worlds. Now, Earth fed itself and planned to share its bounty with others willing to stand by its side. In classrooms across the world, teachers rewrote lessons to fit this bold new era. They introduced courses on spacecraft design, sustainable energy, and planetary ecology. Students sketched their own starship models and calculated warp drive equations on chalkboards. Young minds brimmed with creativity. Some planned floating cities in the stratosphere. Others imagined underwater habitats on ocean moons. Each day, the schoolyards filled with animated debates on which invention could change the galaxy. For the first time, children dreamed not of following orders, but of leading humanity's charge into the stars. Communities formed networks of makers' guilds. In small towns and crowded neighborhoods, people shared tools and trade secrets. A retired mechanic taught welding techniques in a repurposed shipping container. A seamstress showed how to stitch pressure-sealed flight suits from simple fabrics. Neighbors swapped parts-old solar panels for circuit boards, scrap metal for sensors. At night, bonfires roared as stories of accidental breakthroughs and narrow escapes passed from ear to ear. Through collaboration, Earth learned that unity in creation was stronger than any law imposed from above. Dr. Hahn, a 70-year-old astrophysicist, became a symbol of this renaissance. Once a vocal critic of council dogma, he now mentored eager apprentices in his makeshift observatory atop a mountain. Under his guidance, students charted new star maps and tested home-built telescopes against council-made scopes. When a young apprentice discovered an uncharted asteroid cluster, Dr. Hahn stood beside her, his eyes bright with pride. He reminded everyone that age does not limit invention. Experience can guide young talent toward brighter breakthroughs too. Celebrate these achievements. Earth held its first festival of innovation in the Capitol Square. Stalls displayed 3D printed drones, solar-powered vehicles, and self-healing plastics made from algae. Families wandered among exhibits, marveling at prototypes that once belonged only to the council's elite labs. At the center stage, a small, unmanned ship roared to life and lifted into the sky, its engines adapted from council relics. The crowd erupted in cheers. For a moment, every heart beat with the same hope. Earth could create wonders equal to any in the galaxy. Mira watched the festival from behind a safety barrier. Her hands trembled as she held a steaming cup of tea. She remembered the night the council's ships left, when fear had nearly overwhelmed her. Now, tears welled in her eyes, not of sorrow, but of joy. Around her, engineers, farmers, teachers, and dreamers had joined hands. They had turned despair into determination. In that bright celebration, Mira saw the first fruits of their labors, a world united by invention rather than divided by fear. As night fell and the festival lights shimmered, a hush settled over the crowd. President Dane took the stage, his voice firm and warm. He spoke of Earth's journey from exile to empowerment, praised every citizen from the smallest child, who sketched starships in crayon to the elders who shared decades of knowledge. His words wove a tapestry of gratitude and purpose. When he finished, the people cheered again, their voices echoing across the silent streets. By the end of the festival, Earth's spirit had transformed. What began as exile now felt like a beginning. Factories hummed, fields glowed, and classrooms buzzed with plans for tomorrow. In every workshop and lab, people worked side by side, fueled by shared dreams. The seeds of innovation had taken root, promising a harvest that would one day feed not just Earth, but countless worlds. United in purpose and guided by hope, humanity stood ready to rise once more and forge its own destiny among the stars. The first ship slipped quietly from its cradle beneath the red glow of the orbital docks lamps. Mira held her breath, the hum of the engine echoing in her chest like a heartbeat. Around her, the other engineers and pilots watched the vessel named, the Resolute, shine against the black sky. For years, Earth's people had dreamed of a fleet that could carry their hopes into the void. Now, that dream was alive. In the training halls below, volunteers from every walk of life prepared for their roles. Former teachers learned star charts. Ex-farmers studied navigation controls. Young students once confined to classrooms now climbed into simulators with wide eyes. They trusted that the ship they helped build would carry them safely. Some trembled with nerves. Others smiled with fierce pride. All felt the weight of possibility pressing against their shoulders. Captain Elias stood at the front of the flight deck, his uniform crisp, despite the late hour. He remembered a time when Earth's Navy had been small, just a handful of aging patrol boats. Now he commanded a new force born of exile and ingenuity. As he ran through the final checklist, he found Mira beside him. Their eyes met for a moment, and no words were needed. Together, they would lead the fleet's first flight. When the Resolute's engines flared to life, the roar rolled through the docking bay like thunder. Workers clapped, tears shining on their cheeks. Children pressed their faces against observation windows to watch the glow of the thrusters. Birds took flight in nearby sky parks, as if celebrating the birth of something greater than themselves. In that moment, Earth felt boundless. As the Resolute climbed above the atmosphere, the ground, crews cheered. But there was no time for celebration. Next came the smaller escort swift frigates built from repurposed Council designs. Each vessel slid into position, forming a tight formation around the flagship. Pilots who had only ever flown drones now steered real ships through the starry void. They felt the subtle pull of gravity drives and marveled at the precision of their own handiwork. Beyond Earth's influence, Council scouting patrol drifted through the lanes they once called friendly. Its sleek vessels glinted with authority. For a moment, Earth's fleet held its breath. No one wanted a fight, but they would not flee. Captain Elias steadied his voice in the com channel. "This is Earth's first fleet. We come in peace. But we stand ready to defend what we have built." His words echoed through each ship, uniting every volunteer under one message. The Council patrol hesitated. Ancient protocols clashed with the sight of a fleet grown from ashes. No one aboard those ships had expected such resolve. After tense minutes that felt like hours, the patrol commander answered, "Acknowledged, you may proceed." And just like that, the patrol slipped away, leaving Earth's fleet alone among the stars. Relief washed over every crew member. In the flagship's common room, engineers and recruits embraced. On the Resolute's bridge, Mira sank into a chair and let a single tear roll down her cheek. She thought of every sketch drawn in a schoolyard, every prototype that failed in a crowded workshop. All of it had led here, to this moment of unity and triumph. When they returned to orbit, people below flooded into streets and open plazas. They watched the fleet's lights trace patterns against the night sky. Holographic broadcasts showed the ship's cameras beaming live images of proud pilots waving at their home world. Families gathered in living rooms holding hands and cheering. In villages far from the capital, elders nodded with satisfaction, saying, "Our children will know what courage can build." At the orbital workstation, Dr. Hahn welcomed each ship personally. He shook hands with nervous navigators and patted the shoulders of mechanics who had spent months perfecting every bolt. He invited them to a small ceremony beneath glowing banners that read, "Strength in Unity." In his speech, he reminded everyone that weapons were not the measure of power. True strength came from shared purpose and the willingness to stand together, even when the path was dark. Later, Captain Elias and Mira walked along the station's observation deck. Below them, Earth turned slowly, blue and green, and alive. The engines of the Resolute and her escorts waited quietly in their docks, ready for the next voyage. Elias slipped his hand into Mira's. "We have shown the galaxy what Earth can do," he said softly. Myra nodded, her heart full. "This is only the beginning," she answered. "Our fleet will carry more than ships. We'll carry our dreams." Together, they watched the stars wheel overhead. Earth's first fleet had taken its place among them, a beacon of hope born from exile. And as the lights of the patrol vessels faded into the distance, every soul on that station knew they had not just built a navy. They had forged a promise that Earth would rise, no matter what the Council decreed. Trade winds carried more than solar sails as Earth's first envoys set out for the fringe colonies. Pilots, who had once flown between Earth's continents, now charted courses to asteroid-free ports and ocean-moon bazaars. Each envoy carried nothing more than small crates of Earth-grown seeds, water purification tablets, and simple healing salves. These humble gifts spoke of a world that no longer asked for favors but instead offered what it could share. On the first night of their voyage, the envoys gathered under the soft glow of ship lanterns and spoke quietly of hope. To be heard among the stars, they would need patience and kindness above all. Their first stop was the asteroid colony of Hikara, built in the shadow of a spinning rock belt. The docks there were rough-hewn, and trade goods from dozens of broken empires piled in open sheds. As the Earthship landed, station workers crowded around in wary silence. Ambassador Celine stepped forward, her voice strong but gentle. She presented crates of wheat that thrived in Earth's new hydroponic domes. Farm workers tasted the fresh grains and felt warmth in their chests. Small applause rose and Celine's heart lightened. Here they had found friends in unexpected places. On the orbiting market of Metalia, where neon banners flickered above glass-bottom corridors, Earth's envoys found traders skeptical of any newcomer. Merchants had long since learned that promises tasted better than bargains, but when a young envoy named Omar shared a vial of clean water with a stressed surgeon treating a sickness outbreak below, the healer's eyes widened. Word spread quickly that Earth's water filters could cure tired lungs. Soon, Metalia's leaders agreed to meet Celine in the Great Dome. There, beneath cascading waterfalls of light, she spoke of fair trade and shared technology. When she finished, the council nodded in agreement, and a simple treaty was drafted on translucent pads. Back home, news of these small victories traveled faster than any warp drive. Crowds gathered at communication hubs, watching live feeds, and sending messages of congratulations. Children in schoolyards drew pictures of asteroid colonies and ocean moons, imagining what they might build there. In city squares, elders declared that Earth's true empire would be measured by friendships, rather than conquests. For the first time since exile, people spoke of the future with bright faces, as if each new alliance was a brick in a growing bridge to the wider galaxy. The envoys did not stop at Metalia. They traveled to desert world free ports, where windswept dunes hid refugee camps. There they taught engineers how to build wind turbines from recycled parts. In return, refugees shared tales of council, cruelty, and secret escape routes through the void. Each story became a lesson for Earth's planners. They took notes and sketched maps, preparing to open safe corridors for trade and travel. Their hearts grew heavy with each tale of hardship, but they also grew stronger. Compassion fueled their resolve to protect new friends and stand against old injustices. When the Earth fleet returned home with signed treaties and precious resources, celebrations lit every street. Music echoed from rooftops, and bonfires glowed on hillsides. Mira watched from the crowd as envoys disembarked, carrying exotic gems, fine metals, and messages of goodwill. Children reached out to pat friendly aliens whose ships now clung to Earth's space lanes. Elder ambassadors shared stories of handshakes and laughter amid foreign crowds. In every celebration, Earth's people felt the gentle warmth of acceptance. After so long in darkness, but the path of diplomacy was not without its storms. On the moon of Valeris, one council faction attempted to bribe Earth's envoys with rare minerals and secret weapons programs. They hinted that Earth might lose everything if it allied with unreliable partners. Selene refused, her voice unwavering. She reminded the Valeris leader that Earth had nothing to gain from deceit and everything to lose if it forsook its principles. When she returned to her ship, she told Omar, "Our strength lies in honesty." Omar nodded, remembering the clean water that had opened Metalia's doors. For Earth, trust was a greater treasure than any mineral trove. At home, Earth's leaders convened an emergency council to consider these temptations. President Dane spoke of paths taken and paths forsaken. He urged the planet to remain true to the values that had carried them from exile: unity, compassion, and creativity. When the council voted unanimously to reject all arms deals and bribery, the world felt a fresh breeze of pride. In city squares, people raised their voices in song, celebrating the choice to build an empire of friendship rather than fear. As the sun set on Earth's 4th year of exile, the fleets of allied worlds gathered in orbit for a grand convoy. Illuminate ships from Hikara, Metalia, and Valeris sailed alongside Earth's Resolute and her escorts. Each vessel bore the flags of many cultures, their colors bright against the void. On the observation decks, envoys and engineers laughed and learned each other's songs. When the convoy cruised past the council's outer rim, every soul aboard felt a quiet triumph. They had shown that exile could forge the strongest bonds. And as the stars wheeled overhead, Earth's people knew that their fledgling empire was no longer a dream, but a living reality built on trust, generosity, and the promise of a shared future among the stars. Frontier Governor Alaric stared down at the stacks of mineral shipments awaiting distribution. On one hand, the growing orbital yards needed rare metals to build new hulls. On the other, the farm domes on Ganymede required corrosion-resistant alloys for their water piping. Its advisors argued heatedly over who deserved priority. Alaric clenched his jaw. He knew that any misstep here could sow resentment across Earth's fledgling empire. He needed a solution that honored both need and fairness. Meanwhile, in the capital's shipyards, Mira discovered something alarming. A critical assembly line for gravity drive coils had been sabotaged. High-precision components lay scattered, circuits cut in places no beginner could reach. Her heart pounded. Without those coils, the next wave of exploration vessels would be delayed by months. She feared that someone among them had lost faith. Thor, worse, sought personal gain at Earth's expense. Word of the sabotage spread quickly, igniting whispers of distrust. Workers eyed each other warily. Rumors spoke of rival factions eager to sell blueprints to fringe worlds. Parent-teacher groups worried aloud that children would grow up believing Earth's unity was a myth. Even President Dane found himself fielding angry letters from citizens demanding swift justice. In the tension that followed, once friendly faces turned guarded, and collaboration risked fraying. To address the crisis, Dane called for an open assembly in the Grand Forum. The domed hall filled with people from every walk of life: miners, teachers, diplomats, engineers, and farmers. When the murmur died, Dane spoke in clear, earnest tones. He acknowledged the hurt and confusion caused by the sabotage, but reminded them all of Earth's founding promise to rise together through trust and shared purpose. His words cut through the tension like dawn-breaking night. Ambassador Selene then stepped forward. She urged the crowd to resist the lure of suspicion. "Our strength," she said, "lies in our ability to face challenges openly," she proposed. Forming mixed-team investigations groups of volunteers drawn equally from shipbuilders, agronomists, and civic leaders to uncover the truth. By working side by side, They would not only find the saboteur, but also rebuild the bridges that fear had threatened. The assembly voted overwhelmingly to accept Celine's plan. Across the Empire, mixed teams formed. In packed meeting rooms and on busy factory floors, volunteers pored over surveillance logs, examined circuit diagrams, and shared testimonies. At first, the work felt awkward. Pilots and farmers, engineers and artists, all forced to bridge gaps of knowledge and background, but as they collaborated, they rediscovered the simple joy of shared effort. In the orbital workstation, Mira worked alongside a data analyst named Joran, who had once been a courier on Mercury. He taught her to read subtle patterns in security logs. She, in turn, showed him how precision tools could test circuit purity. Late nights found them sipping tea and sharing stories of their hometowns. Distrust melted into understanding as they realized that none among them would betray the world they had rebuilt. After days of diligent work, the teams uncovered the culprit, a disgruntled technician who believed Earth should exploit alliances for quick gain. He confessed with tears in his eyes, ashamed at how his fears had driven him to destruction. Instead of punishment, the assembly chose rehabilitation. The technician was invited to rejoin the workshops under supervision, where he spent months learning the values he had lost sight of. As trust returned, the mixed teams completed their task, a new, more efficient assembly process for gravity drive coils. The design improvements cut production time in half, ensuring Earth's next exploration fleet would launch ahead of schedule. The sabotage, once a source of despair, had become a catalyst for innovation and unity. On the day the first improved coil rolled off the line, celebrations erupted across Earth. In the capital square, children danced around the statue of the first exiled envoy, weaving flower garlands into its metal limbs. Farmers offered free baskets of fresh produce. Engineers let the bells ring on their factory towers. Everywhere, laughter rose like steam, carrying a message. They had overcome internal strife through cooperation and forgiveness. That evening, President Dane spoke once more beneath the aurora-lit sky. He told the story of the sabotage, not as a shameful secret, but as proof of Earth's resilience. Praised every volunteer who had worked together to heal the rift. His final words echoed in every heart. An empire built not on fear but on trust will stand unbroken. As fireworks bloomed overhead, the people of Earth embraced, secure in the knowledge that their unity was stronger than any challenge. The dawn's promise glowed like a lantern against the black sea of space as it slipped free from Earth's orbital docks. Its gleaming hull bore the emblems of Earth and its fledgling allies. Mira stood on the bridge, her palms pressed lightly against the cool console. Around her, engineers monitored life support and navigation. Their faces calm with pride, Captain Elias peered through the view screen at distant stars. "All systems green," he announced softly. Behind him, envoys and medical officers prepared. Crates of vaccines and water filters. Each crate carried Earth's promise to heal wherever sorrow still lingered. The crew moved with gentle purpose, knowing that every act of kindness would echo back to Earth in goodwill. Their first destination lay on the rim of Chartis, where a plague had ravaged a mining colony. When the dawn's promise arrived, its thrusters stirred red dust from the planet's surface. Miners hobbled toward the landing pad, their gaunt faces lighting with hope at the sight of Earth's ship. Myra watched from a side hatch as medical teams disembarked with soft-spoken greetings. Under makeshift tents, doctors in earth-white uniforms administered vaccines and taught locals how to use portable water filters. Children clutched small packets of purified water, marveling at its cool taste. An old miner pressed Mira's hand in gratitude. "You have given us life," he said. Her eyes filled with tears as she realized how far this simple gift would reach. Next, the dawns. Promise dropped supplies to a floating habitat orbiting Titan's moon. Engineers there had struggled to maintain power in their failing reactors. Earth's solar cells, adapted for cold environments, snapped into place on the habitat's frame. As panels unfolded like wings, the habitat's lights flickered on once. More. Inside, families cheered. In the observation lounge, Mira allowed herself a small smile. News of these missions traveled faster than any messenger. Holographic updates beamed to Earth's holospires, showing children playing in cleared fields and sick patients rising from cots. In classrooms, teachers paused lessons to share live feeds. Across the planet, people gathered to watch the Dawn's Promise sail past distant worlds. Each broadcast carried Earth's message. Exile had not broken them. It had made them kinder. Meanwhile, the Council on Ambrosia Station received word of Earth's actions. In its marble halls, delegates argued over reports of humanitarian aid. Some spoke of Earth's growing influence, warning that goodwill could become a weapon of persuasion. Others reminded their peers that no armies had marched, no threats had been made. Only open hands had been extended across the void, on the Dawn's Promise. Envoys prepared for their final stop, the moon of Lyria, where refugees from countless wars had gathered. Crowded camps lay beneath vast tents, faces blank with despair. As envoys distributed food and medicine, children shyly offered gifts of carved stones. Myra knelt to accept one, a smooth pebble painted with simple lines. In that quiet exchange, she saw the purest bond of trust. When the Dawn's Promise soared, away from Lyria, its hold nearly empty of supplies, but full of new friendships. The crew held a small celebration aboard the ship. Pilots and medics shared stories of laughter and moonlight and tears beneath sterile lights. Engineers played simple tunes on makeshift instruments. Under the ship's dome, they danced in zero gravity, bodies twisting like willow branches in a summer breeze. As Earth's fleet of allied ships gathered around the Dawn's Promise for the journey home, Laius addressed the assembly. His voice carried through the ship's corridors. We have shown the galaxy that strength comes from compassion. Let our passage back be a reminder that exile can create unity where fear once ruled. The word spread like fire among the crew. On the voyage home, Mira studied new star charts sent by Lyria's cartographers, included hidden routes through nebulae used by refugees. By sharing these maps, Earth offered safe passage to those fleeing conflict, feeling the weight of responsibility and the thrill of purpose. When the convoy slipped into Earth's orbit, crowds thronged the landing fields. People wept at the sight of banners from Hekara, Metalia, Valeris, and Lyria fluttering alongside Earth's flag. Children waved and families embraced returning envoys. Under the glow of orbital lights, Mira felt Earth's pulse strong, steady, alive. President Dane stood on the steps of the palace, flanked by allied ambassadors. He spoke of the Dawn's Promise's voyage, praising every volunteer. Today, he said, we stand not as exiles, but as architects of hope. Our empire will be known not for its conquests, but for its kindness. As he spoke, the crowd cheered, their voices rising in unison. Later that night, Mira and Elias walked along a quiet promenade overlooking the city. Below them, fountains lit with colors borrowed from other worlds danced in time to distant music. They paused beneath a statue of Earth's first envoy, flowers laid at its base by grateful citizens. Elias slipped his arm around Mira's shoulders. We began this as a punishment, he said softly. But we have made it our greatest gift. Myra rested her head against his shoulder, watching distant lights wink in the night. We have built more than ships, she replied. We have built bridges one act of kindness at a time. Together, they gazed at Earth's shining dome, ready for the empire they would continue to forge among the stars. The grand chamber of the Galactic Council gleamed with polished marble floors and soaring columns. Mira stood beside Ambassador Selene, her heart pounding with hope. Alongside them were envoys from Hekara, Metalia, Valeris, Lyria, and other worlds that had joined Earth's cause. They wore their own colors and emblems, but their eyes all shone with the same belief. Earth's exile had given birth to a new kind of power, one born in kindness and unity. When the Council's Chancellor gavels the meeting to order, a hush fell over the assembly. Delegates from hundreds of worlds leaned forward, curious to hear Earth's voice after so many years of silence. The banners of old alliances fluttered overhead. But the empty spot where Earth's flag once hung was now filled by the vibrant standard of the Interstellar Alliance. In that space, history waited to be rewritten. Ambassador Celine rose first, her robes pooling lightly at her feet. Her voice was steady as she recounted the day Earth had been cast out. Fear had turned neighbor against neighbor, and how exile had threatened to crush their spirit. Then she spoke of the sparks of innovation, the domes of green crops, the fleets built by willing hands, and the bridges of goodwill stretched across the void. With each word, she showed how exile had become Earth's greatest gift. Behind her, allied delegates leaned in. The senator from Hikara spoke next, praising Earth's grain that fed starving colonies. The merchant queen of Metalia described how clean water had turned her bazaars into places of healing. A healer from Lyria told of how Earth's medicine had eased her people's suffering. One by one, they told stories of hope rekindled by simple acts of generosity. The council listened, moved by voices that had once been ignored. A faction of traditionalists murmured in protest. Some believed no world should rise from exile to claim a seat among the great powers. Yet as council members whispered among themselves, they could not ignore the truth laid before them. No army, no conquest, no threats had brought these allies together. Only trust, shared effort, and the courage to offer friendship had woven this alliance into being. President Dane stepped onto the dais next. He spoke softly of Earth's promise to stand firm for justice, to share knowledge freely, and to uphold the rights of every world, great or small. He pledged that the Interstellar Alliance would work alongside the Council, not in opposition to heal old wounds and fill the galaxy with new opportunities. His simple words carried a quiet power that rippled through every seat. When the time came to vote, silence fell. One by one, Council delegates raised their placards. Yes, yes, yes. Even some who had once opposed Earth's return found themselves moved by the chorus of allied voices. When the final tally rang out, the Chancellor announced Earth's seat restored and the formal recognition of the Interstellar Alliance as a partner in galactic governance. Cheers erupted like starfire across the chamber. Back on Earth, holoprojectors in every city flickered to life. Crowds spilled into the streets, watching the live vote count. Children danced under banners painted with the words, "Welcome home." Families embraced, tears of joy shining on their cheeks. In small villages and great metropolises, people rang bells, lit lanterns, and sang the song of the exiled star, a hymn of resilience and hope that had grown up in their hearts. With Earth's return, the Council opened its doors to reform. Committees formed to revise outdated laws, to curb bureaucratic excess, and to make decision-making fairer for worlds on the galactic fringe. Earth's proposals for sustainable energy, shared research, and cross-cultural exchanges passed quickly. Once fear had ruled the Council's halls, now curiosity and collaboration took root. Later that night, Mira stood on the observation deck of the Council station, looking down at Earth's blue jewel, turning beneath the stars. Oh, she remembered the day the last Council ship had sailed away, leaving Earth to darkness. Now the void was filled with the lights of allied vessels and the hum of ships working together. She slipped a hand into Salinas and whispered, "We have come home." Ambassador Salinas smiled, her eyes glistening. "Ouch," said, "We have made home for many." Together, they watched the galaxy stretch out before them, a tapestry of worlds linked by trust, invention, and compassion. In exile, Earth had found its true strength. Standing beneath the Council's vaulted ceilings, they knew the empire they had forged would last as long as its people remembered that the greatest power lay in unity. The simple choice to extend a hand across the stars,